I think conventionally, if you speak about the tactical side and transactional behavior, even those little outdated KPIs around saving without really looking at the TCO element. And now that the TCO further goes into how sustainable the organization is, not just being green, but sustenance to different challenges what we face now as geopolitical issues and all that. So I think one thing that I wanted to continue as a discussion where Mohammed spoke about who are your vendors. So someone is exploiting you, or someone is actually letting you lean on his strength and kind of together work your way out of this problem. So that's one area that this buyer 2.0 mindset should make you work towards. The other thing is, we all probably realized, and since I belong to an event industry, it's always a short span of activity, a lot of spend within short span, and very little time to execute that as well. So sometimes our balance around timelines, cost, and compliance would always be kind of shifting here and there. But then I realized, and around my team, when we have these sort of discussions, we are project managers, risk managers, probably relationship managers as well. And I think one area that academic foundation is fine, but your experience and your surroundings would probably make you a better person when you start leaning on those strengths which matter the most today. And I think relationships internally and externally are going to be the most powerful tool. um, we have a problem. We all know what we are facing right now, but the first thing we look at right now is who can bail us out, and it's always a vendor. So if you've got those conventional ways of dealing with them by keeping them at a distance, I don't think that would work anymore. Too many emails, too many sets of communication, but just be a little filterless, speak to them, get to a point where you can together decide how the next 3 months are going to be for both of us. The other thing what Mohammed picked was, and I think the buyer 2.0 mindset should bring that anticipation as well. I think we have not faced a price problem right now. But in 6 months, when everything will normalize, the impact of what people have faced at a raw material level today will actually start showing up in the books in 4 or 5 months. So there will be two problems. One is obviously the cost and the demand at the same time. So today, your relationships will probably let you navigate your way out of this trouble, but you need to really have that sort of mindset. If you're still happy with managing your category in a conventional manner that you've always done, it has worked for you, that's fine. But when things like seat at the table, and not just seat at the table, retain that seat at the table as well by being that sort of driving force that takes the organization forward. Uh, we've seen that in COVID days. Most of the contracts that we had, or anyone in an organization, you could see a slowdown, you could see no activity, absolutely no movement. So the first thing was, what can we do with these contracts? So that goes back to your influence over your suppliers, and that influence is only because of relationships. I think it's such a powerful yet underrated thing. And that's why the buyer 2.0, and I stress on the fact, your meetings and your interactions with your vendors should also be for non-cost, non-monetary reasons as well, because there is no harm in finding out what should be our direction. I was attending another session, and I believe one of our mentors here, Kurt, was speaking about, you probably have a training seat, someone is not attending. Let a vendor attend. Let a vendor understand where is your team heading in terms of what sort of skill set and why, because that's probably going to be directed towards a vendor at the same time. So let them understand the culture as well. And the other things, the tech side, or the digitization or data use and all, there would be a pushback. There might be a certain group of people who are comfortable with the conventional ways. But I think before we even head into buying something as a software or as a tool, I think we all need to address a culture around it, because it has to become comfortable for them. And that's why this HI plus AI equation gets completed. And it's always the human interface that would drive the decisions. Data gives you clarity, data gives you confidence, and every decision becomes a better decision later on, because you would still not stop, you will still not overthink, because you're the one who's assigned a job. So you don't really have any other area to go back to and ask, am I doing the right thing? Because that's your job, right? But what you can do best for yourself as a member of the team is, if there was some sort of imperfections, you don't overthink, because especially in Middle East, there's
Right.
so much pushed on time that sometimes time lost is value. And that's why you need to move, take the learnings forward into the next decision. There won't be perfection every time, especially when there is a time pressure, but that's the mindset that I keep thinking of. I would remain a lifelong buyer regardless of how do you grow. And the learning should never stop. And that's what data and digitization should do, provide you clarity where you're heading into. We talk about seat at the table. We need to come across people who basically are very confident about their trait, and not just by how much they have done earlier in an organization. It's more to do with how they have taken or driven organizations out of a problem as well. So there are many things that a buyer should take pride in now, not just by those numbers at the end that reflect a saving percentage or a KPI achieved, but it's about the company looked at you when they were in trouble. They kind of looked upon procurement to bail them out, and then procurement had those solid relationships where they picked their key suppliers and actually strategized how best we both can work together. And I think this talk about transparency and being very clear about the core destiny that might be for both entities over the next 6 months, or you handpick your real partners. And then, are you process driven or are you value driven? That's where you need to really set your direction. You can be process driven, and you can have that process which would define your compliance and standardize things around your organization. But sometimes when you're likable for your internal stakeholders, when you're likable for your external stakeholders, when you meet them without really creating protocols of not meeting them, I mean, that can be an excuse at times. That's what probably would decide success of that buyer 2.0 in the coming days. And and these relationships are built on very filterless discussions and conversations. And like I said, when people say, I get no time to sort scope out because at times my business unit or end user has already agreed on a scope with a certain set of people or a vendor, how many times have we either we police them and become not very likable, or we go and understand why are we not a part of that process. Now, at times you will come across in fast-paced environments where things are already done. There's very little other than a hard bargain that you can apply or execute there. But imagine if you went there and asked them a question. I like the fact that you were proactive enough to find a vendor who basically fits into the budget and compliance and quality criteria that we have set. But is there anything that you wish for within the same vendor they have picked, that if they could have done these extras as well, this could have been a very perfect proposition? And then that can be your starting point to probably start introducing someone who has got those things that they claim is probably missing in their vendor as well. So I mean, there's always a different way, and that's what probably for me is your buyer 2.0 mindset, that who is willing to be very passionate about the profession that actually is paying you to spend company's money. That's such a thing of pride. And the only section probably who can, without asking anyone, go out, speak to people, and has absolutely no compliance issues because this is their job. They do not have to ask. I mean, we do expect business units not to go out and speak to vendors, but we have absolutely no limitation on restrictions on that. So there's so much that the next generation can look at as a profession of choice and something that they can really take pride in by executing it in a way. And the best part of our profession is what? There's no right and wrong. It's a situational thing. It's a situation that the company trusts you, you take decisions on their behalf, and in and if you're ready to keep learning while you're actually taking those decisions, trust me, over the course of 6 months, you'll start feeling confident about your own traits. So this is how I see, and I think these little traits on influence, relationships, anticipation, all that is what looks like more of subjective elements, but they're very powerful. And then what Mom mentioned, that obviously the digitization, data use, time saved, bringing you out of the tactical mode finding time for your strategies. Half of our team members would talk about workload, PRs, and all that. Well, that's always going to remain in a fast-paced environment. We're hungry for footfall and people coming to Middle East and all, right, because of the current situation. But once they come, we go back to the same vicious cycle of being very busy and not able to really execute strategies that we thought we could. But today's the time. Start meeting people. There's no harm. Ask them about what are their plans towards dealing with some of these challenges, because trust me, a vendor brings you information about your competition as well, and that's also important at times. And they also deal with procurement teams from other sections or other entities, where you can kind of find out where is the industry heading. And I think it's also very important for the buyer 2.0 to understand the industry direction, because that's how we then blend those areas of focus, or holistically we work towards things that are going to make a difference. So that's my little take around. Well, probably was not little. I probably took about 10 minutes, but I find it a very exciting time. Just to sum it up, it's not a disruption. It's a reminder that probably better visibility could have been an edge, could have been an edge to kind of counter or have alternate strategies. We probably became reactive because of disruption. We could have been proactive by having a better visibility to things.